Chapter 7. The sun began to finish its slow descent to the horizon as Dante Jr. and Lei Song made their brief journey from the polar bear dog pens on the eastern part of the estate to the western courtyard. Lights shone in the distance, and they soon heard the sound of the fire strings and the water harp being tuned to satisfaction by the players. The duo rounded the corner of the massive house just as the side doors of the estate opened up before Varric and Julie walked out hand in hand. The onlookers of family and the few friends invited started clapping for the venerated couple. Others raised their glass and shouted, "Happy 50th anniversary!" Little Nene tried to join in. "Happy 50th anniversary!" The first long note of Julie's favorite song started to slowly resonate through the fire strings as the player heated one, then two of the platinum strings in his fiery grip, while slowly pulling on the strings as needed to change notes and pitch. As the slow progression of the fire strings began to build in melodic intensity, the honored couple made their way to the dance floor. Once in the center, the couple exchanged a few private whispers and then kissed with a restrained intensity suitable for an audience. The elderly lovebirds pulled back to stare into each other's eyes. Gan spread his incorporeal essence through the venerated couple and watched with their mind's eye. He saw the young, vibrant couple as they were 50 years ago on their wedding day. Gan smiled, knowing that was the way the pair still saw each other, even now. Then, standing over a yin-yang emblem painted on the floor, the aged admirers locked hands and began to slowly dance. Others soon joined in, some with tears in their eyes. Dante Jr., too young to be moved by such things, was surprised to look up and see tears threaten Lei Song's eyes as well. "Oh, not you too. Sorry, I was just thinking of—" Lei Song looked down as he began to trail off. Junior replied with a tinge of guilt in his voice, "Oh, sorry, I was just teasing." "Ah, no worries. Ancient history," he replied while looking up, recovering from his unwanted reverie just as Dr. Solaris approached the pair. "Glad you two could make it," she greeted them both while drawing closer to Lei Song. Dante forced a quick smile while Lei Song just nodded. Solaris brushed some loose strands of hair away from her blushed cheeks. "Would you care to dance? I love this song." Dante's normally charismatic companion started to stammer in response. "Well, I'm not sure. He'd love to," Junior finished for him, giving him a light nudge into Solaris's waiting hands, and she quickly pulled the reluctant man away to the dance floor. As Lei Song was pulled past his son, the young man called out, "Have fun, Dad!" Lu Chan looked around for a moment until his gaze rested on Kauna. He proceeded to fix his hair and tie as he anxiously made his way towards her. As he got closer to her, he could see that she was smiling from ear to ear. "Looks like you are in a good mood," he said with a somewhat nervous smile. "You have no idea." Kauna uncharacteristically grabbed the stunned young man and embraced him tightly. Lu Chan felt his stomach rise up and his heart sink down. His knees began to buckle and his feet left the ground. Kauna released him, and Lu Chan dropped to the ground in search of his lost feet. A waiter walked by with a tray of champagne, and Kauna grabbed 2 glasses. Don't be weird, Lu Chan. Here, have a drink. I feel like celebrating." The young man stood up and stared at her with a glazed look in his eyes as he waited for the blood to drain from his face and bring life back to the rest of his body. In the meantime, Kauna grabbed his hand, put a glass in it, and guided it to hers for a proper toast. What are we celebrating?" "Progress," she exclaimed before quickly finishing her drink and tilting up Lu Chan's so he did the same. After putting both glasses on a nearby table, she guided him to the dance floor. Kauna rested her head on his shoulder as they began to dance. Lu Chan's face melted into one of pure contentment, just as the notes from the water harp and the omni winds reached their most melodic highs. As for the drums, they were drowned out by the beating of Lu Chan's own heart. Shortly into the dance, however, he couldn't help but wince after she stepped on his foot for the third time. "I'm sorry. I hate when this happens." She started to pull away, but Lu Chan gently pulled her towards him and back onto his feet. "It's okay. I don't mind," he reassured her in a soft tone. "In fact, I kind of think it's one of your most endearing qualities." "Easy for you to say. You have no idea how important parietal function is," Kauna replied, with a hint of frustration in her voice. "Like, remember the time I was suspended from school for slapping a teacher? Well, that was because of an ill-timed hiccup in my brain's ability to properly process sensations." Lu Chan couldn't help but laugh as he finished her story. "Yeah, I remember. Mr. Wu tapped you on the shoulder and you started screaming, 'He touched my butt!'" Kauna smiled, but replied in an apologetic tone, "I swear that's what it felt like to my screwy brain, and my endearing qualities don't stop there. There's the fact that I can't get a driver's license because I might spontaneously lose my understanding of right from left. And let's see, there's my loss of body orientation. Your feet can tell you about that. And I can't begin to describe how much fun homework and class speeches were when my ability to read comes and goes on a whim. Not to mention what it does to my bending. Believe me, it's no picnic. I'm sorry, it's just, other than those few flaws, you're just so perfect." Kauna chuckled. "Ha! Tell that to my first 3 waterbending instructors. Besides, you say that like it's a bad thing or something. I've worked hard to thrive in spite of my injury. I graduated a solstice early from the Mechanist School of Science, and I practically run Varick Pharmaceuticals' R&D department." Lu Chan ignored the fact that it was Dr. Kiri who ran the department and gulped before replying. "I know, it's just, I'm afraid if you become too perfect, you might lose sight of the beauty of imperfection." He paused and stared longingly into her eyes, with a look that said, "Baby, you're my forever girl." He leaned in with puckered lips, but Kauna pulled away. "I told you not to be weird. I'm going to go get another drink." Lu Chan stood on the dance floor, silently cursing himself until getting bumped by Varick. "Hey, move it or lose it, lover boy. This floor is for dancing." As Lu Chan walked away with his head down, Zhu Li playfully berated her husband. "Oh, be nice. Besides, having a crush on Kana can't be easy. I'm sure he gets enough grief." "Now who needs to be nice? I think Kana has moxie," Varick stated in defense of his granddaughter. "I know, I heard you 3 talking as we were coming to get you." "Oh." He paused to look at her, raising his left eyebrow to heights only Varick could take it, before probing further. "And you disagree?" "No, you're probably right. If Varys thinks people, especially her investors, will be impressed with her desire to help the Avatar." Zhu Li paused, glancing at Varys, who was still in a noticeably bad mood, before she continued in a bitter tone. "She is setting herself up for disappointment." Varick started to talk, but now it was his turn to be humbled into silence as Zhu Li finished her point. "That doesn't mean I have to accept it when you start making false claims about what your legacy is, mister," she said with a voice that meant business. Varick gave his wife another quizzical look. Zhu Li's face softened as she leaned up and kissed her husband. "It's not Varick Industries," she said with a hushed whisper and a coy smile. Varick reflected on his wife's words until he heard Kiri, Umi, and Bolin laughing. He looked over to see all his kids and grandchildren gathered around, all having a great time. He turned back to his wife to be greeted by a look he had become all too familiar with. It was the look that said, I know. I'm the world's dumbest genius," he admitted with a smile. "As long as you know that," Zhu Li said, before leaning up to kiss his cheek and lovingly resting her head on his chest as the pair continued their slow dance. Chapter 8. Bolin and his younger sisters all stood around a table, laughing and reminiscing. "Oh my goodness, could you believe Mum and Dad when they got on the dance floor?" exclaimed Mei Li. Kiri laughed before responding, "I know. I thought I was going to have to hose them down." Bolin pointed toward their father, receiving a verbal lashing from their mom. "Ah, oh, look at them now." Mei Li made a gagging gesture. "You gross. I don't even want to look." "No, stupid, he means they're fighting again," Umi corrected. Mei Li turned to look just as Ju Li softened her expression and kissed Varric. "Oh, great. And now they're kissing again. Totally gross." They all shared a laugh. However, their collective good mood was soon set at odds by the approach of their eldest sibling. As Varys reached the table, she slammed her empty glass next to Mei Li's, bending the champagne out of the latter and into the former. "Hey, I wasn't drinking that or anything," Mei Li protested. Varys slammed back the contents of the glass and signaled the waiter. "Relax, sis. I just think you're too young to be drinking is all." Mei Li retorted with sarcastic inflection, "I'm 30, Mum." "That's going by age, but in terms of responsibility, you're closer to a 4-year-old. No, I'm sorry, 4 3/4. Varys finished in her most patronizing baby voice. Mei Li took the drink out of Umi's hand and tried to splash its contents in Varys's face. However, she was able to stop the wet assault with a simple wave of her hand, causing the liquid to rest calmly in her glass, just as the waiter made his way over. "Can I help you, miss?" "No, I'm good now," Varys said, while shooting Mei Li a smug look. "I'll take one." "Thanks," Mei Li replied. Varys continued to chastise her sister. "Oh my God, she said thanks." Mei Li turned red. "What the Vatu is your problem?" The waiter handed her the drink and nervously shuffled away. "Seriously, Varys, either tell us what your problem is or take your wet blanket bending somewhere else," Umi stated bluntly. Varys choked on a quiet laugh while wiping a small tear from her eye. "You're right, Umi, and I'm sorry, Mei Li," she added sincerely. Mei Li handed Umi the glass of champagne she just received to make up for the glass she had taken earlier. "It's fine. I'm just going to get a fireflake martini or something," she said before walking away, clearly a little hurt by her eldest sister's harsh character assassination. "I just saw you less than an hour ago and you were fine. What happened in there?" Bolin asked, pointing to their dad's house. "Oh, nothing. Just another reminder of why my company is called Varric Pharmaceuticals," she stated, with emphasis on Varric. "Welcome to the club. Although I must say, Bolin Industries has a nice ring to it." "Oh, it does," Kiri interjected with a somewhat nervous smile while glancing at Varys in an attempt to gauge her mood. Kiri got hopeful when Varys seemed to relax a little, but her older sister soon stiffened again as someone approached from the dance floor. "Why the long faces? It's a beautiful night and a great party. It's time to celebrate," Kauna stated enthusiastically before grabbing a glass of champagne. However, it was immediately intercepted by her mother. Kauna tried to bend the liquid into another cup, but overestimated her skills. After losing her bending grip, the intoxicating liquid fell to the ground, only to be caught by Varys, who lifted it back into her own glass. "Nice try." "Oh, come on. I'll be 20 in a few months," Kauna protested while reaching for an apple, before adding in an arrogant tone, "You're just mad, because Gramps sided with me." She finished with a loud bite of her apple. Kiri and Bolin exchanged uneasy glances as the two continued on in increasingly aggressive tones. "You're getting ahead of yourself, as usual," Varys casually corrected, with an air of indifference. "Oh, what? Your meeting?" Corner asked with an overly exaggerated eye roll. "Ha! Gramps was right about that too. They will applaud your benevolence while hiding their wallets." Varys started to retort, but the sting of truth stilled her tongue. Kiri calmly intervened. "Come on, you two. Save the shop talk until we get back north. Now is the time to celebrate." "Indeed," agreed Bolin. "I'll drink to that," declared Umi while holding up her glass. The siblings toasted while Kauna just shrugged and raised her apple up to the hoisted glasses. Umi gave her sister a pleading look, and Varys acquiesced with a nod. Umi handed Kauna a glass of champagne for a proper toast. Laughter and drinking ensued. Chapter 9. From afar, Dante Jr. watched his family toast. He tried to hide his desire to be with them, but knew he wasn't succeeding when his eyes kept drifting in that direction. He looked around for anyone to talk to, but Lei Song was still dancing with Solaris, and both seemed to be in their own world. Dante drew toward the stage to get a better look at the band. He stopped by the Omni Winds, but with just one airbender, and the fact that the music itself was a slow ballad, there wasn't much to see. The single bender just stood in front of the interconnecting wall of tubes and shot gusts of air into various embucha holes, while occasionally moving the pitch knob back and forth for some trill and flutter effects. Junior looked over to the center of the stage to check out the water harp. The player, having already formed the requisite layer of ice above the harp, was now holding her hands out and moving her fingers like she was playing an invisible piano. As the player's fingers touched down on the phantom keys, the sheet of ice just above the harp would drip water on the strings below with harmonious precision. Dante marveled at how the tiny drops could make a sound loud enough to be heard over the rest of the instruments, but then noted all the mics around it. He counted 7, 3 on each side, and a large mic beneath the harp itself. Junior started to check out the sand kit as the song reached its finale. He had time to glimpse a tiny tornado of sand hitting 3 cymbals at once, creating a rolling effect with a speed only thousands of grains of sand could achieve before the miniature sandstorm came to rest in a long box beneath the kit. After a brief bout of clapping, the band began their next song. Dante started to walk away, but a strange sensation caused him to look down to see a polar dog licking his fingers. Junior began to pet it, but was soon confronted by Nene, who ran up and formed a protective stance between him and the polar dog. "No, don't hurt it." "I wouldn't do that, Nene. That's not what Kalari said." "Well, Kalari doesn't know me very well," Junior disputed, in a more defensive tone than he intended. "No, I don't believe you. Come on, girl, let's go," she said, while urging the polar dog away. Dante looked up to see several people gazing in his direction, including Lei Song and Solaris, who were both making their way toward him. "Everything okay?" Lei Song inquired. "Yeah, but I think I'm going to go for a walk." "Are you sure, Dante? I thought you might like to dance with me, even if it is to this oldies music," Solaris said, with a sprightly smile. Dante couldn't help but grin at Solaris's playful suggestion. "Maybe next time," he replied, appreciating the invitation. "Okay, but you owe me a dance, all right?" Solaris reminded him. He walked off after giving a brief wave to the two and headed toward the tail-shaped shores of the island. Shortly before getting there, he saw the silhouette of someone near the shore. After getting a little closer, he recognized who it was. Lu Chan appeared to be startled by his approach. "Who's there?" "It's me, Dante," he said, while making his way closer. Lu Chan took a less defensive posture. "Oh, hey. What are you doing out here?" Dante inquired. Lu Chan replied sharply, "What are you doing out here?" "I'm an outcast. I'm supposed to be out here." "Ha, fair enough. Well, I'm not exactly an outcast, but I'm afraid I made a fool of myself with your sister." "Oh, well, I wouldn't worry about it. The way she's drinking tonight, she might not remember." The two looked out to shore for a while, until Lu Chan broke the silence. "You know, your sister is really something." "Yeah, she's something, all right," Dante Jr. agreed, with more than a hint of sarcasm. "You two don't get along, do you?" You could put it that way. You could also say my grandfather has a kind of nice house. Dante gestured to the mansion and then toward the statue of Varric, almost as large as Aang's statue near Air Temple Island. Junior looked down before going on in a more serious tone. But don't get me wrong. I love my sister. I owe her a lot and would do anything for her. But after our father died, things have been a little tense in our family. Yeah, I noticed you and your mum don't seem to talk much either. Junior gave him a defensive look, and Lu Chan began to backpedal. I mean, it must be nice. My dad's always crowding my space. I wish he would leave me alone sometimes. You're lucky to have a dad, especially one as understanding as Lei Song, Junior assured him. Yeah, you're right. After a short pause, he added in a more somber tone, You're pretty lucky to have a mom too. The two stood in silence for a while until Lu Chan broke it once more. Hey, Dante, I don't suppose you would give me advice on how to get back on your sister's good side, would you? Kauna's work and research are her life, so you might want to start there. What is she working on? You know my sister, nothing short of changing the world. As the two teenagers continued talking, Gan felt his omnipresent attention drawn to a distant shore. He closed his eyes, and the world around him faded into new surroundings. Chapter 10. The world rematerialized around Gan. The icy shores of Whaletail Island were replaced with the nearby coastline of Republic City. The statue of Varric transformed into Aang's revered monument, standing sentinel over Air Temple Island. Gan's unyielding gaze suddenly fell on a group of equalists off the shore of Republic City, looking toward the statue when one of them stepped forward, holding a remote. Time to change the world. He pressed a button on the remote, and a series of explosions went off around Aang's statue and near Air Temple Island itself. A moment later, a group of White Lotus members sprung to action. The White Lotus firebenders and waterbenders quickly moved to put out the flames, while the earthbenders took to reinforcing any damage to the temple's structure. However, none were able to make it to the statue in time, as it immediately began collapsing. A boy in garments akin to a White Lotus member awoke to the explosions outside his beloved home. He looked out his window in shock at the carnage outside, but was both relieved and impressed with the quick actions of his mentors. Thinking of what he could do to help while wiping the night from his eyes, the young man decided to take action. He reached out to the corner of his modest room towards his staff. A gust of wind tossed his lone ponytail, and a second later he leaped out of the window, staff in hand. Catching an air current of his own making, he quickly glided over to Memorial Island to see if anyone was hurt. After a couple of passes, he was relieved to find no one was on the island, but seeing the damage done to this sacred and personally beloved location filled the young airbender with an emotion he knew an aspiring White Lotus member shouldn't feel. However, on his third pass of the island and the ruins that now lay on top, the young man was no longer looking for survivors, and his eyes were quickly drawn to a group of people watching from the distant shore of Republic City. As the young airbender got closer, he could see they were all dressed in black, and the embers of hatred he'd been trying to smother threatened to reignite. "Equalist," Law sneered through clenched teeth. A moment later, his suspicions were confirmed as the first bullet narrowly passed him by. The spirit form of Rohan hovered high above Air Temple Island, taking in a bird's eye view of the damage. His initial relief in seeing the quick response of the White Lotus members mitigating the damage was short-lived before he turned toward Avatar Aang Memorial and gasped in shock. The statue was completely replaced by a dust cloud. Tears started to build in the eyes of his mortal form, and Rohan struggled to keep his astral projection going. With the motivation of checking the island for survivors, he found the strength to send his spirit form into the dust cloud. He hoped to not find anyone, not just for the obvious reason, but also because he knew he couldn't help anyone directly in this form, but he could inform the nearby Lotus members if anyone needed help. Rohan felt relief in finding the island empty, but again, that relief was short-lived as he heard gunshots from the distant shore. His spirit rose from the dust cloud and quickly spotted a young airbender flying toward Republic City and dodging a volley of bullets as he made his way to a group of masked assailants firing at him from the shore. It didn't take Rohan long to recognize who the young bender was. "Law, no. What are you doing?" Meanwhile, on Air Temple Island, members of the White Lotus worked in concert, putting out flames and reinforcing structural damage. One of the lead members shouted orders to the others. "You three come with me. We need to check the other island for survivors." Rohan's spirit form suddenly appeared in response. "No need. I've checked, and the island is clear." The nearby White Lotus members showed brief shock at his sudden appearance, but quickly recovered. "Rohan, well, that's a relief. One less thing to worry about." Rohan continued grimly, "I'm afraid there is something else. It seems my brash grandnephew has gone after the people responsible for this attack." "What?" exclaimed the lead member. "I need you four to take a boat to Republic City. I will meet you there," Rohan stated before his spirit disappeared, leaving the four alone. "Well, you heard him. Let's go." Law's heart raced faster than the bullets he narrowly evaded as he soared ever closer to the Equalists. As he closed the distance, his anger and adrenaline surged, enabling him to expertly dodge their lethal projectiles. He was aware that engaging them head-on could be fatal, yet he could not bear their decimation of Memorial Island. As he approached the shore, a duo of Equalists unveiled immense cannons, launching expansive nets in his direction. With nimble dexterity, Law collapsed his glider, diving beneath the nets while employing his staff to unleash a formidable gust of wind before quickly remounting his aerial apparatus. The forceful blast sent the Equalists flying, providing Law with an opportune moment to descend and confront them directly. Law charged forward with vehement determination, his staff poised to unleash a devastating onslaught. In the instant before Law's wrath was made manifest, the spirit of Rohan materialized between him and the Equalists, an expression of deep concern etching his countenance. "Remember your teachings, Law. Vengeance does not bring closure," Rohan implored. The young airbender hesitated, his rage momentarily pacified by his venerable great-uncle's ill-timed intervention. Seizing this moment of vulnerability, the lead Equalist took aim and fired. While Rohan's mortal body was spared any harm as the bullet passed through his spirit form, the same could not be said for Law. Rohan was fated to bear witness as his grandnephew collapsed before him, the side of his head marred in crimson. As White Lotus members approached in haste, the Equalists slipped away in smokescreen and shadows, leaving a ghostly Rohan to lament over young Law's motionless body. Overcome by grief, Rohan failed to control his astral projection and awoke in his quarters. Eyes dripping, he gasped, "What have I done?" before rushing outside.